And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Crypto Bull. I forgot the episode name. It's down below in the title. Not going to look it up. Currently, I'm going to talk a little bit about the current state of the market. I was refreshing here, going to visit CoinGecko. As you can see, the market has been turning bloody red for the past couple of days, especially early this morning when I woke up with, well, let's just say quite a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, people panicking, big proclamations. We are in a bear market. And what was the reason to it? Well, let's zoom in on Bitcoin. Well, the major reason was up until yesterday and early in the morning, we were trading quite low. We were trading on the under boundary of the trading range of at about 47K, and we even dipped momentarily underneath it. But as you can see, it was nicely bought up. Now, this is something that a lot of people, well, that triggered a lot of people. And, well, a lot of influencers started saying, yeah, we're in a bear market, watch out, time to sell off, etc., etc., etc. Myself, I hold a position, always zoom out. And with that, I want to show a little tweet I made. This was from early this morning. So entirety of Crypthusiast having talks about the dip and a bear market. I do not believe it for one iota. I go on and say, shows how new money out to Bitcoin. We are gonna make it zoom out. So made a little treat here. So let's share a few visuals. Because an image, sorry, says more than 1,000 words. Bitcoin is fine, dips are temporary. Let's just zoom in on the things I did this morning. This morning when I woke up, this was the graph I was meted with. And people exclaiming, like I so nicely indicated, it's bearish. Big red cross. It isn't bearish. By reason, you have to start zooming out. What do we see here? 14-day average. We are still trading sideways, and it can easily be seen when you look at the long term. There are a few dips here at the 47.5K, as you can see, but that's your level of support. And the people who are exclaiming we are in a bear market only were looking at this very tiny small part where it was underneath it, where it dipped towards the 46K. And they'll say, oh, it's a bear market. No, it isn't. This is a small correction. Like I said in the previous episode, and which I've repeated a few times already in the past couple of days and weeks even, currently we are trading in the 47.5 up until 50K range. So in between these two lines. As you can see, that's a nice average. Why do I say so? Well, quite frankly, you can see it on this graph I'm showing here. 47.5K underneath, up, buy up, buy up, buy up, buy up. Each time it's touched the 47.5K, we had bullish sentiment, meaning the market that overall was buying the dip. Each time bought a dip, stayed above for some time, crashed down, bought the dip up until approximately yesterday, crashed down. Oh no! And what do we see here in the 40-day range? Buying the dip. First sentiments of, once again, a bullish signal. So currently we are trading sideways. So there's no reason to panic. Even so, I dare even say that this is an enlarged window of opportunity, especially early this morning, where you could see we were trading for quite some time below the 47.5K level, implying, well, that's a nice buying opportunity. A lot of people can go in and buy Bitcoin on the cheap. Now, let's continue. If we zoom out towards 3-month average, it isn't the first time we had some lows. Last time, there was an indication somewhere early October, end of September, where we're trading near the 40K range. But even on a 3-monthly basis, on a quarterly, we see bullish uptick. Sure, it isn't the all-time high we had here approximately somewhere early November, but the average trend is still going up. And if we zoom further out, well, on a yearly basis, it is bullish. You can see these are some tops, perhaps overvalued, true value, overvalued, correction. So at this point, in my opinion, are we in a correction? All signals indicate we are still bullish. However, people start panicking and proclaiming a bear market and alt season by reason the market is going down for a few days in a row. That in itself isn't bad. It is an indication, well, to accumulate that the market is correcting itself. These kind of tops are generally, well, at their base comes due to traders, due to active traders trying to take profit. And we have to be honest, the end of the year is nearing, and a lot of people want to have positive books, so they are starting to cash out. There isn't much money going around to make investments. That's something we saw earlier in late 2020. In December, well, there real institutional investors didn't want to jump on the bandwagon. When did they do it? January, February, March, April. First quarter of the year. Why? Well, at that point, the profits of last year have been deducted. Everything's fine. They have a surplus that they can invest. That was one of the reasons in especially February and March. Well, Tesla came out, we accept Bitcoin payments, institutional investors, JP Morgan, etc., jumped on the bandwagon. It was pre-programmed they would be doing so, but they were awaiting the right time. Mainly, well, they are still linked to the traditional financial system, so they await with their investments. That's the only reason, and the fact we're seeing this, and I'm even going to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, more on that later. Yeah. I'm going to refresh the graph here. You can even clearly see it if I start zooming out here. Why it isn't as steep has to do with, well, it's the end of the year. So these are almost exactly the same graphs. Having trading volumes are low. If you look at max, let's hope my computer wants to do so. Hopefully it isn't freezing up. There we go. So, and you can especially see it. Yeah, I'm going to zoom in here. 2020. There we go. Oop. Come on. I'm having difficulties here. Sorry, guys. It's a bit steep. There we go. So as you can see, well, okay, probably not the best example. Forget that part. Probably made a mistake. Generally, I still remember the FUD from last year. And in December, well, institutional investors didn't want to go all in. I can start zooming in and you might see that there were also more flat lines. However, 2020 was a little bit exceptional due to the Bitcoin halving and it was in full swing. The institutional investors, well, you can actually see it more or less here on the graph. Each time an institutional investor stepped in. So in December, there was bullish sentiment. It reached its peak, but then went down. And up here in this part, I'm going to slightly zoom in here. There we go. So October, sorry, you can even see it quite clearly. No, that's October. Yeah, okay, that's actually a good example. Sorry. October, November, December 2019, could see it was slightly bearish. It was only in January 20, okay, there was a large dip due to COVID. And then there was bullish sentiment. So in the first quarter, there was, well, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, because this is being, well, skewed due to COVID. As you could see, October, December, small bearish trend, especially here, going sideways. And starting from January, quite clearly here, second, we went up before it came crashing down due to COVID. And this is the kind of scenario which is going to play out this year. That's the kind of scenario we are in at the moment. You see, we have been trading, I'm going to readjust here. There we go. 14 days, 30 days. And this is a little bit of scenario we are in. Sure, it is bearish if I'm doing it on the monthly, especially with this kind of dip here. Do not forget, this is the end of the year, the last quarter, and most institutional investors are closing their books down. That's the reason why we are mostly going sideways and we are seeing sudden dips and highs. People taking profit, traders responding accordingly. But the average trend is still sideways trading. That's something which is occurring in the past 14 days. And it will continue doing so up until, well, next year. Starting in January, I expect a new bull run. Let's continue here. Now what's fueling a little bit of this dip? Well, this. Everyone knows about the Evergrande big Chinese company who defaulted on its debt. That's also some bad news. Why it closed its books? Well, it defaulted its debt and made it publicly known last Thursday, quite in the evening, even for European markets. But during the weekends, markets are closed, and it's only since yesterday and today that the markets are able to respond to it. And in what does it translate? Well, that's the kind of dip you are seeing here. It's actually a delayed reaction on the news. So at this point, Bitcoin is still correcting, but we are still trading sideways. And if this was the major dip, which was actually pushed due to the defaulting debt, well, we're doing fine. There's no real reason to panic. And from what I can tell you, it is going sideways. I've got a few other treats here. Some good news. Well, we want bullish signals. So let's continue. Mike Alfred here. It's a little response I made. If you're selling Bitcoin here, you will never be able to forgive yourself for being duped just before the next big supply shock. Santa is coming. Now, I highlighted this tweet and I even made a little remark for myself onto it by saying the reserves on exchanges are indeed crashing down. I agree. A big supply shock is inbound. I'm going to give you the example. This is the current graph of Bitcoin value reflected towards its reserves on exchanges. Now, as you can see, January, February, March, blah, yada, 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 yada. January, we were in uptick, high value, but the supply on exchanges was relatively stable. There was a little cross here where a lot of Bitcoin was available, which gave naturally a little hike in price. That was the accumulation phase, which occurred from June to August this year. The accumulation phase, which I also talked about quite a few episodes ago. We'll cross a bit here. Now what's happening? Well, its value took a hike, made a new all-time high, but as you can see, it was dipping here. Now we are seeing a crashing of the value, but also not too many Bitcoin being available on the exchanges. Now it is quite odd to see it, but this implies people are taking profit, but at the same time are locking away Bitcoin. So not necessarily selling it on exchanges, meaning, well, there is a buy up, but as I foretold you with the Evergrande defaulting on its debt, this will result in quite a supply shock, meaning there's less Bitcoin to go around on the exchanges, which implies, well, this kind of movement, value going upwards once again. So what you're actually seeing here, what occurred is bearish trend on the amount of Bitcoin available on exchanges will result in a new bullish trend. That's actually some good news. Now, other news, Bitcoin CME futures slip into backwardation as bearish sentiment grips market. Now, that's quite a long title, perhaps quite technical, but what does it mean? Quite frankly, it means institutional investors are not buying Bitcoin. Simple as that. Reason? Well, quite simple. I already mentioned it. They are making up their books, meaning Well, they're not buying Bitcoin because they already are in profit from the assets they accumulated over the span of this year. They do not want to make an additional risky investment. They are keeping the books closed. So, meaning, well, there's bearish sentiment? Not exactly. There is sentiment to buy, which is clearly seen here as exchanges are being exhausted on their supplies. But the value isn't following by reason everyone is holding on. And the only reason why there's no real demand here is by reason that the institutional investors are saying, well, we are not buying at this point in time. They are the big whales. They have literal millions and billions of dollars they can invest. They can make the price go upward. Now, what is the solution here? Just hold onto your Bitcoin. By reason, starting from January, they will have money available to reinvest. And at that point, the demand will skyrocket. I'm losing my thingy. Yeah, demand will skyrocket. This one will take a hike. It will go down even further. While the black graph here will shoot up. That's actually some very good news. This is being presented as FUD, but in reality is good news. Next tweet. Yeah, these are some older tweets that I made, even older than those of this morning. And it actually rehearses what I've already been saying since this month. Some good news, people are buying the dip and creating stronger support. It is still on the cheap. It still is. You could clearly see I've drawn a red line to indicate it was bullish sentiment. Now, if I look it up today, we are going sideways. But you start zooming in, this point to this point, bullish before it crashed down. And up here, we were trading above range. So people taking profit, sell off. Same here, above range, sell off. Relatively stable, near range top, immediate sell off. Let's continue. Very bullish sentiment, slowly increasing in value, reached the higher range for trading, immediate sell off, low, and now there's sentiment to go back up. Zooming in 24 hours, you can clearly see at average we are going back up. It's the way how things are being traded. Yeah, that's a little bit more in detail. It is interest. Now you've got your hypers like Crypto here. There is a breakout. He made the post, I believe it's a few days ago. I believe it was here or here. And my response, quite frankly, was doubtful. There's bullish sentiment for BTC, but rehearsing what I said earlier, it is still trading sideways, as clearly seen here, between the 47.5 up until 50K range. 50K is the heavy resistance. There's a lot of sell orders right there, meaning, well, as soon as the 50K upper boundary has been reached, quite a few automated trading bots will say, okay, start selling off, we are in profit. So it's really the small time traders and investors, well, playing for small percentages, taking their profits. As soon as that resistance is exhausted, can we go upwards? When will it be exhausted? Well, from what I'm guessing, somewhere January 2022. Will it go further down? Doubtful. It is always possible. It's not financial advice I'm giving, but I do not see an immediate further push down unless naturally some heavy other news is breaking. You never know. By reason, everything is tied up in the cryptocurrency market. So this was this episode of Blockchain Talks. Hope you guys learned a few things. Hope I made quite a few things clear. If there are comments or questions, please leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode.